Going live, baby.
All right.
We should be there now. Let me refresh in the group, make sure we're good. We should be. Yeah, baby. We're there. All right,
All right.
so
Sweet.
how about this? Instead of me, because I know we lost some time here, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are so they
Sure.
and what you do, and then we can jump right into it.
Sure. So I'm John Risvold. I'm a personal injury attorney. I work at the Collins Law Firm here in Chicago. Um, you and I have been talking a little bit about focus groups, and that's what we wanted to talk about today. So I call it sort of a meat and potatoes personal injury practice. I'll handle anything from a car accident to slip and fall, all the way up to wrongful death, med mal, nursing home, truck accident, and then we're starting to do a lot more brain injury work, which is pretty cool. But with those larger end cases, that's when the focus group kind of stuff is really, in my opinion, super important. Um, we like to
Yeah,
prepare every
it's funny.
case like it's going to trial.
I guess I do meat and potato injury stuff too, then, because that's basically what I do too. But
Yeah,
you're right.
yeah,
You don't necessarily need it, but I mean you can use it. So if you do your own focus groups, I think you can do it for the smaller stuff if you're getting closer to trial. But I don't think it's not necessary though.
yeah. If you've got a rear end car crash case, you don't necessarily need to do a full on focus group. You might want to do some stuff like, you know, how people react to injuries when there's no visible property damage or stuff like that. The usual sort of stuff that you'd voir dire about. But I don't think you need a full-on focus group. But some of them, I think you absolutely need them. I think in some cases it's almost, I wouldn't go so far as to say malpractice, but it's close if you're not finding out what people think about your case before you walk into trial.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that, and it's one of those things where it's good, especially in the smaller cases, to if you have a specific issue. With the bigger cases, I mean, you can go through a variety of issues. I'm
Yeah,
curious what you think, and we'll get to the process in a second. What are your
sure.
thoughts on using a focus group for multiple topics? Do you normally do it for one topic or multiple topics? How do you normally do it?
So I've done it both ways. I like it on multiple topics, mostly because selfishly it gets me kind of warmed up and ready for jury selection. I can talk about damages, burden, contrib. I can talk about all sorts of things in, one fell swoop. It also selfishly saves me costs because, the money's coming out of our pockets as a plaintiff's lawyer. So you want to be aware that um, sometimes a focus group they can be incredibly expensive. They can also, like we'll talk about, I'm sure they can be very cost effective. But I've been part of focus groups that are outrageously expensive. So you want to just be aware of that. I think get as much bang for your buck as you can.
So let's jump into that. So when we do our focus groups, we put our own on. How do you do
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, we do the same. So I've done it both ways. So I've hired people to do them, and it was good because we were already working with the trial consultant. But when the bill came, it was eye popping, and I think having done that a couple times, and there's so many tools out there, and I've got one with me that I'll show everybody here in a minute that you can do them yourself once you really know how to do it. And you don't need to pay somebody 100 grand or whatever it might cost to do it. I mean, I saw a bill once it wasn't one of our cases, but it was a focus group that I attended because I was, acting as the defense, and the bill for that was over 100 grand, and it was unbelievable. I mean,
And there, I mean,
it was a med mal case, it was a serious case, but you're gonna spend six figures for an afternoon.
yeah, and a lot of that though is you're getting the consulting is what you're getting, and that's what you're
Right.
paying for. Like the logistics of it, I mean, a lot of the stuff you can ask the questions yourselves, and I mean, you're paying for the consulting, you're paying for them to ask the questions in a very specific way. But I think you can train yourself to do the focus groups yourself. I think it's fairly easy because we're trial lawyers. That's what we do. We
Right.
ask questions. We get
Right.
to the bottom of things. So let's talk about the process
Sure.
of doing your own focus group. Basically all pretty much just starts with you have the case, but then putting up the job ad, right?
So
Or-
my favorite thing to do with a focus group, I mean, well, first getting the people in the door is we've done it as simply as I've gone out to the mall and I've asked random people. I said, "You want to be a part of a focus group this afternoon?" I've texted, friends and said, "Hey, do you know anybody who is available from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock on Thursday? I'll pay them $50. I'll buy them lunch, and they can come be part of a focus group." They can come from anywhere. What you're trying to do is just get sort of a representative sample of 6 or 12 people that could be a jury in your community. It really doesn't have to be anything more sophisticated than that.
Interesting. So we do it. We do it. You're right. I mean, we do it a little bit different though. So what we do is we put them in 3-hour blocks, and so we
Okay.
put an ad on Craigslist,
Nice.
and
Yeah,
we
we've
say,
done that.
hey, so $15 an hour for 3-hour blocks. You can do as many blocks as you want. And so we'll have a morning block, an afternoon block. We'll put the job ad on there, and I'll post it in the group so people will have it and say, we'll need you for 3 hours. And then after we do that, we have them fill a questionnaire out beforehand. Do you have them
Yeah.
do the questionnaire?
Yeah, so we have them do a questionnaire, and then we've done it a couple of ways. We've done it where we're actually in the room, or we've gone off-site to specific places that have two-way mirrors and done it that way too. I haven't found that it makes much of a difference. They're going
Yeah.
to be honest, and you're going to have, people that are pro one side or the other and that have their own agendas, and it's really going to be kind of true to life, I feel like, whether you're in the room or not.
So we have them
But
submit the questionnaire in advance. So they
okay.
email it to us in advance. I was just today, I was just like, okay, I wonder how other people are doing it. So I was searching focus groups on Craigslist, and some are actually sending you from a link to fill it out. And I'm sure some people will be
Mhm.
skeptical about clicking that link. But I think that would be an easy way of doing it rather than having them fill out a paper form because we just give them a PDF.
Yeah.
I think it would be easier if you can get people to click on it to
Yeah, I
actually fill
agree.
out the form. It would be a lot easier.
I agree. So we've done it that way where we've done focus groups that are just surveys or
Hmm.
just people filling out forms. And they're good, but I always like to hear the discussion. So
Oh, for sure.
we've done them as
So you
simple
did the
as
actual focus group with just on paper?
we have just on specific issues, specific things, like,
Hmm.
trying to work out, I'm trying to think of a good example. We had a sexual assault case that I was working on. So it's trying to work out specific issues, like how would you react if, this person had been accused before, but they were exonerated, and then they were accused a second time. Does that, play into your thought process in terms of whether or not their employer should be held liable? Right. And,
Interesting. Yeah.
I've done that just on sort of one-off sheets. And you get you can collect more responses that way, and it's much cheaper than bringing people in. Then obviously you bring people in and you have the full-on sort of, my favorite way to do it is clopenings, like do an argumentative opening statement for each side for a half an hour, and then have somebody from your firm or a friend or a consultant, if you've hired a consultant, facilitate sort of the deliberations. And then
Okay, so talk more about
afterwards,
that. 'Cause, yeah, that's a little different than what I do. So let's dive a little bit deeper into this. So, explain the setup. What's the room look like? How do you set the
sure.
room up?
So the room is two attorneys, someone who's actually working the case. You want them to do the plaintiff's side. So if it's
Right.
my case, I'll do sort of the mock opening, but it's an argumentative opening. So it's like opening slash closing. Usually like 20 to 30 minutes. I'll have a presentation, like my PowerPoint, everything else, and I'll walk through jury instructions, that sort of stuff, like I would do in closing. And I have somebody do the defense as well. They do the exact same thing, where they're going to walk through and make their argument, no rebuttal, and then that's it. The room is, you get a couple, three tables, or you can do it at a conference room. Line the conference room up, have everybody sit there, listen to the openings and the closings, and then have a neutral, again, friend, another lawyer, a consultant, whoever, come in and say, okay, you've heard the closing from this one and that one, and then just start facilitating the conversation and let them deliberate and sort of direct them to specific issues. So the last one we did had a real big contributory fault issue. And so we talked a lot about that, and it had a drunk driving element where my guy got in the car with his buddy who he knew was drinking. They'd been drinking together, and his buddy causes this very serious, rollover accident. Um, and a lot of it hinged on that. And, it was nice to be able to be a fly on the wall and hear somebody else facilitate it, but also you get to practice your argument, and then you tune up your own argument at the same time. So it's kind of a dual trial prep.
Interesting. So okay, so here's how we start ours. Is we'll go in there and I will give them. This is after we've got all the questionnaires and everything. I will give them a brief summary statement of the case, and
Yeah,
that's I'm talking like big picture.
right.
And so what we'll do is we'll start off and we'll start with the discussion on that. So they're all sitting out in the room with me. And just as a side note, we always provide
Yeah,
refreshments for them, coffee,
yeah,
soda, snacks, and things like that. I think that's a nice little touch that they like. It keeps them engaged, and so that's good. You want some feedback. But anyways, so I'll start to feed them information though slowly, but I start with big picture stuff, and then I'll say, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that? And then what additional information might you need? Because
yeah,
you slowly go forward, slowly, and then I'll usually give them more information after a break. And so we'll give them that. We'll have a good topic. We'll go from table to table, and then after that we'll take a break, and then I'll start to give them another big chunk of important information. That's how I do it. So
I like
do
that a
you give
lot.
them all the do you give them all the information at the beginning? Is that how you
So
do
it
it?
depends. We've done them the way that you've described before, and I like that. But we just recently started trying this, clopening is what we're calling it.
Hmm.
And I really, really liked that because I was less involved in terms of feeding them information, and I really got to watch how they take snapshots like a real jury would and process it and what they remember and what they don't. And it really allowed me to sort of clean things up and be a little more linear and really improve arguments. I liked it. There's no wrong way to do it. I think is really the
Sure.
what you're getting at and what I think, because every time you get an outside opinion on your case, like I tend to fall in love with my cases, and then I get blinders on, and then I focus group them with my friends or my wife or whatever, like mini focus groups like that, and then I get frustrated because they find problems that I've turned a blind eye to. But that's so helpful, and I think you can always be doing it in any way. You can do it all the time in all these little ways. There's no wrong way, but the way we've been doing it lately, I kind of like it just because it's a little bit of dual prep.
Sure. Okay, so I want to back up a second. I want to make sure we go through the logistics again, and then I've got a question
Yeah,
I want
sure.
to ask you. So basically, you got to get your people first. You can do it in malls, getting people. You can ask friends that know people. I wouldn't get people that actually know you.
No, no,
We,
no, no.
we we do a Craigslist ad. You can do an Indeed ad. You can do a Facebook ad,
Yep.
whatever you want to do. And we can put that in the new section I added on Facebook. Once you've got that, you have them fill out a little survey / questionnaire, whatever you want to call it. We have them do it in advance. You have them do it there. It doesn't matter. They can do it
Hmm.
either way. We have them have a sign-on sheet, and the sign-on sheet's important for us. We make sure that they put their full legal name. That way we can write them a check because we don't write the checks until near the end. So we make
Yeah,
sure we have them sign in when they get there. That way we can fill the check. We say, listen, write legibly because we're going to start filling out these checks, and then that gets us to where we present the case to them. So logistically, that's where they are. The
yeah,
question I have for you though, so some people recommend that you say, listen, they've hired me to present this case to you. This isn't my case, so I don't really know much about it. I'm just giving you the information. It's dishonest. It's not that. It's not
yeah.
like it's a big lie. But what's your position on that? Whether one way or
So
the other.
the way I've handled it is to say things like, you're going to hear about a legal case. It could be a pending case, it could be a past case, but lawyers like me put these on for several reasons. One, to learn about our case beforehand, before we would go into maybe a mediation or any sort of settlement discussions, or sometimes because nobody's videotaping us or nobody's there to give us critiques after a trial. Like a professional athlete would watch tape, this is our version of sort of watching tape. And so you're here to help me get better at my job so that I can help more people in the future. And that's how I framed it and done it. And people are usually really amenable to that. Like, oh, I'm just here to help you. I don't have to decide one way or the other. This is just an exercise, for practice. And it kind of puts them at ease that way. And that way I don't
Sure.
feel like I'm being dishonest in any way because it's all true. The other thing I do say, at the end, or I have somebody say is, we want you to know that this is a pending matter, and it's going to be pending in, whatever Cook County, DuPage County, wherever we are. We need you to sign this confidentiality form, and nothing you say in here you can say to anybody. And if you are called to be a juror, part of this form says, I've already heard this case in a focus group, and I need to be dismissed from the jury for cause. And
I'd forgotten all about the confidentiality agreement.
yeah.
I'm glad you
So
brought that up.
I've never had it happen, but I'm always scared that I'm going to walk into, day one of jury selection, and it's like, oh, there's 3 people from my panel, and they were the 3 people that thought my case was terrible and wanted to run me out of town on a rail.
For sure.
So that's also super important too.
You always want to make sure with that too, just like if you're doing a regular jury selection, make sure that no one knows any of the parties, especially if it's like a big company and things. That's a big part of it because they're gonna have bias. I mean, it's just gonna be like a regular jury, and you want this to be as close to possible of a jury as you can get.
That's the hope.
Yeah. So the idea is, and I go both ways with this. The idea of telling them that you're not one of the parties is that way they don't try to side with you, because like there's that tendency to side with you. I don't know, and the ones where I've done it where like I let them know, yeah, I represent the plaintiff. I don't know, I haven't gotten that much where like, oh yeah, we're going to side with you. It's sometimes it's almost the opposite.
Yeah, there was one that comes to mind where I said outright, like, this is my case and I represent the plaintiff and yada yada yada, and I had 4 or 5 people right off the bat that were like, we're not giving you a dime, nothing.
Sure.
And it wasn't even that. It was a fall down case. It wasn't that complex, but it was your usual, like, you should have watched where you were going. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Money grab, all plaintiffs are bad kind of stuff.
Sure.
That I think that, they wanted to make it hard for me because they knew because they knew where I stood and what side I was on. I think they deliberately made it a little more difficult because some people see this as a game. It's very useful for us, but every now and again you run across people that have an agenda, or they're going in because they want to make some extra money, and then they're just going to play the game a little bit. And you got to watch out for that because that really can be very unhelpful as you're getting ready.
Yeah. So you also you have people that just want to collect a paycheck, and so you have to, when you're asking these questions, I mean, one, you're paying them, right? So you want to get some feedback, but you also you want honest feedback. And another, when you're asking these questions, a lot of what you want to do is, at least in my opinion, tilt the questions away that are against you, so you can try to develop the other side's arguments. That's the point of a lot of this. You're going to try to develop their arguments so you can defend against those whenever they're used against you in trial. And so I always go around the room. So I'll do the general questions, raise your hand. But I'll go. Remember, you get to control the room. It's not like in a courtroom. The judge doesn't control anything.
No rules.
So I go person to person. I say, listen, Mrs. Smith, what about you? Mr. Jones, what about you? And I go through and I get commitments from each person, and I make sure that they give me feedback, because I'm not going to let you just sit there in the room, because these are going to be the people on your jury that are going to be sitting there not answering questions, and you want to hear from them. And so I think that's a key part of it, is going around the room and making them commit to something.
Yeah, I agree. And that's the scariest part about, jury selection, in my opinion, is the silence of certain jurors when they say nothing and they won't give you anything, and then they end up somehow on the jury because you don't have enough strikes, and that person's a ticking time bomb, right? So you have no idea where they're going to come down. So you're right. You really have to dig in and go around the room and make sure that you're talking to everybody. And to your point, and this was something that was taught to me very early on, and it was, really drilled into my head. The purpose of a focus group is to try the best defense case possible. It's not to put on the best plaintiff's case and, stand there and shoot layups all day long. Like, you want to make it as difficult for yourself as possible, because that's how you'll be able to easily overcome those defenses, or much more easy to overcome them in jury selection, in opening, and throughout your case, because you'll know what the traps already are. That's why I like to have somebody who's not either not in our firm or not affiliated with the case at all, but who's really sharp, put on the defense case. And I tell them, look, I want you to beat me. That's the goal. And if you go easy on me, it doesn't help me at all. So you really need somebody who's going to like, I've got some good friends that have no qualms about really, going hard at it. And that's incredibly useful, I think.
And there's no better goal than whenever you go into a mediation, you ask a question that's completely biased against you, and you've got
Yeah.
a video response showing how pissed off the jury will be at the defendant. It is
Yeah.
fantastic, and
Yeah.
so that is it's a piece of gold that you can use to try to get a case settled during a
And
mediation. If you
then,
go and
and that's another really, really good point that video these.
yes,
Video as
yes.
many of them as you can. Take as much video as you can.
Many
And
angles if you can.
yeah,
If you don't have a videographer, have many cameras set up.
it's easy to do. I mean, look, everybody's got one of these. Like, just go take it in there, set it up, go buy a tripod off Amazon for $10, and you're good to
Right.
go. The other thing that you should buy, and this is not a shameless plug for me, but it is for probably David Ball and Trial Guides, is David Ball put together a DVD of basically how to do this on your own. So you don't need to
Right.
go hire him or any other consultant. I love this thing. You can see it's pretty beaten up. We use it a lot. We use these methods a lot. They're really great. And in it, he describes a lot of what we've talked about. There's a lot of different ways to do it. We just tried doing a survey at the very end. After you've heard everything, fill out this 3 or 4 page sort of survey at the end of how you would distribute fault, how much money you would award, et cetera, et cetera. That way, people aren't really put on the spot there. They were able to sit, take their time, really think about, would I award, hundreds of thousands of dollars for this injury, or tens or $1 million or whatever it is, without any sort of pressure or anybody breathing down their throat. And we got some really, surprising responses that were really, really honest, in the same way I think you would get in closed door jury deliberations, where there's
Absolutely.
no one really breathing down their neck. And I liked doing that. It was a new thing we hadn't done end of the focus group surveys really before, and it was really enlightening for sure. So
And I think I put some of those surveys. I think it's under units in the group.
okay,
So I'm pretty sure I put those. I put a full packet and I put the sign in list. I'm going to start to wrap things up because I've got another one of these at 4 o'clock to
no worries.
record a podcast. So I'm going to go back through the logistics again.
Sure.
Not completely. So just so people understand how to do these themselves. You get your group of people, whether in person, through people Craigslist ad, Indeed ad, get those people in, have them fill out a questionnaire, sometimes in advance, sometimes when they first get there, have them do a sign-in sheet. You're going to go through, you can either do the sort of the open-ended one where you just give them a basic set of facts. You can do the one where it's more adversarial. You have one side put on their case, and the other side, you ask the questions, you go through. I do that at the end survey. I always
Yeah.
ask them to give me a commitment on an amount, and so I do that. Make sure they record it. Make sure you get the NDA signed. Make sure that also make sure they know in advance that you're recording it. That's a big
Yeah.
part of it because
Yeah.
some may not like the fact that they're going to be recorded. So make sure
Right.
that they know in advance. We put signs up saying this is being recorded, even though there's cameras everywhere. They know that. I think that's important. And then the last part is we make them sign out, and they don't get the check until they sign out. So they
Yeah, you
sign out,
definitely
we give them a check.
don't pay them until the very end as they're walking out the door,
Yes.
for sure.
I've had people leave and I'm like, well, you're not getting paid. Sorry.
Sorry.
And they leave.
Yeah.
And so that's fine. But usually when you tell them that, they will not leave. So and we tell them at the beginning, listen, we're going to have your checks ready. We'll give them to you when you sign out, but you're not getting them till the end of the day. And so you get people they would just try to show up and get a check and leave, and that's it.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
do not give them the checks at the beginning. They'll leave.
Don't even keep the checks near you. Give the checks to
No.
somebody else and have them go for a walk or something.
Well, and you'll
Um,
have no shows, and so we don't fill out the checks until they get there. So they get there, then we'll start filling out the checks. That's how we do it.
and I would tell people, don't worry about the no-shows. Like, if you've got 6 people or more, you're good to go. That's
Completely
what I
agree.
think, at least. I mean,
Completely. I think 6 is a good number.
yeah.
You want more, but if you can get 6, that's good. All right. Anything else you want to add before we wrap it up?
No, just do this. It's great
Yes.
case preparation. It's a great, easy, it can be very cheap way to learn a ton about your case, and is incredibly helpful to your clients. And if you're really interested in doing the best for your clients, you should be doing these at every opportunity, but don't spend, a boatload of money. You can do it very cheaply. And then pick up this.
Yes.
It's like $100. It'll teach you everything that I tried to talk about today.
That cost, yeah. Last thing, it's about 15. We do $15 an hour. You can do $10 an hour. 15 is usually best, at least for us. You get more people, so you have 45 people times the $45 times the number of people that are going to be there. That's what you're going to pay. Pay a little bit for coffee, soda, drinks, stuff like that, and that's just about it. I mean, that's
Right.
about the cost. That's
And
not much more.
the thing about it too is that it's a case cost. So,
Yes.
explain it to your client, let your client know, what it is and what you're doing, and explain to them, look, this is part of the case, it's part of our case costs, and you'll get that money back on the back end.
Beats spending $100,000 too. So, all right, man,
Doesn't
I'm gonna jump off here. Appreciate
All right,
it.
brother.
Have a good one.
Absolutely.
We'll see
You
you.
too. I'll talk to you soon. See ya.
Thanks, dude. Yep. See you.